The honourable member from Battleford's Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP-Liberal government, taxes are up, costs up, crimes up, and you know what? Time is up. This costly NDP-Liberal coalition has doubled the cost of housing, and the majority of Canadians are unable to keep up with their grocery needs. Canadians have had enough. But the NDP-Liberal coalition only wants to drive up costs by quadrupling their carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister finally call a carbon tax election so Conservatives can offer Canadians some relief?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, under the Conservative leader, slogans are up, rhymes are up, and parroting talking points so you get a shiny gold star and caucus seems to be up. I cannot imagine diminishing myself when I have the opportunity to represent my community in the House to cheapen the arguments that we can put forward on the floor of the House of Commons. If they care about helping people, why don't they actually support the policies that help build homes for people who can't afford them? Why don't they actually help advance policies that let families put food on the table, whether that is childcare, a middle-class tax cut, or the Canada Child Benefit? Every time we put measures forward to help Canadians, they vote against it and stand up with this nonsense.
The honourable member from Battleford's Lloydminster.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you the Canadians that are lined up at food banks aren't buying their pathetic rhetoric. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has already confirmed once again that the carbon tax is costing Canadians more than they receive in rebates. And for families in Saskatchewan, the quadrupled carbon tax is $2,000. Will the Prime Minister finally give Canadians the carbon tax election that they so desperately need?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me provide a few facts to the honourable member. Fact, the PBO confirmed that the vast majority of Canadians get more money back than they pay. Fact, over 300 economists say carbon pricing is the best way to reduce emissions that is best for the economy. Fact, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said her family gets more money back with the carbon rebate. Fact, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe said he looked at all alternatives to the carbon price and they were all too expensive. We are reducing emissions while we are addressing affordability. On that side of the House, they have no plan to address climate change. They are actively denying the reality of climate change. They have no plan for the economy. Shame on you.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Let's speak about facts. Mr. Speaker, young Quebecers listening to us are seeing a future dream of theirs disappear. That dream is of becoming a homeowner. In just 5 years, house prices in Quebec have increased by 74%. That's more than $1,000 more a month for a mortgage. The crisis was fuelled, Mr. Speaker, by the Liberal government's compulsive deficits, with the enthusiastic support of the Bloc Québécois. Can the Prime Minister stand, look Canadians in the eye and say why he's made their life worse? The Honourable Minister for Tourism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to remind my honourable colleague that it's this government that created the first national housing strategy that built thousands of housing units throughout the country. Not only that, Mr. Speaker, we've also created a tax-free savings account. Do you know how many young people have signed up? My brother, for example, who's 33, 700,000 young Canadians throughout the country who will see their dreams come true thanks to this government, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's not the Conservatives that are saying this. The Real Estate Brokers Association have noted this. $400,000 average price in Quebec City, $460,000 in Gatineau on average, $590,000 on average in Montreal. Mr. Speaker, beyond the numbers, we see broken dreams and ambitions for young Quebecers under the leadership of this government. I invite the member for Papineau, Prime Minister, to rise today and explain to young Canadians and Quebecers why he's made things worse for them and why they can't even buy a house because of his leadership. The Honourable Minister for Public Works and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My colleague for Louis Saint-Laurent, who I like very much, talks about ambitions and numbers. He should talk about the ambitions and the numbers of his Conservative leader. When he was Minister for Housing, during his entire mandate, throughout the country, built not one, not two, but hold on to your hats, 6 entire housing units, Mr. Speaker. He should talk about his Conservative leader when it comes to ambition, so that he could visit 160,000 units that we have built in his riding alone.
The honourable member from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs up, crimes up, and time is up. The Prime Minister's own Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed yet again that the carbon tax costs more to Canadians than they get back in rebates. When the NDP Liberals quadruple the carbon tax, families in Alberta will pay nearly $2,000 more in carbon taxes. Will the NDP Liberals finally admit their tax is simply a scheme and call a carbon tax election?
The Honourable Minister for Economic
Mr.
Development.
Speaker, at the risk of correcting my honourable colleague from the other side, let me state very clearly, the PBO has indicated that 8 out of 10 Albertans get more money back from the Canada Carbon Rebate than they pay in carbon tax. And Mr. Speaker, but you don't have to take my word for it. You can take the word of Premier Danielle Smith, who said that not only did she get more money back because she lives in rural Alberta, she even got the 20% top-up. Sorry, my colleague, that's the fact.
I ask the honourable member from Miramichi Grand Lake not to take the floor unless he's recognized. The honourable member from Battlefords, Lloydminster. Excuse me, from Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians lined up at food banks really aren't buying that rhetoric. I'm sorry. Food bank usage is also up. Cold Lake Food Bank is the busiest it's ever been, with a 28% increase in usage over 2023, which itself saw an increase of 16% over 2022. The carbon tax is driving up the cost of groceries, gas, and heating, making things more difficult for families and food banks that are pushed to their limit. So the question's simple. Will the Prime Minister admit his carbon tax isn't working and call a carbon tax election?
Wonder what the other Randy thinks.
The Honourable Minister for Employment and Workforce Development.
Speaker, the numbers are in and the checks have already arrived. And in Alberta, a family of 4 gets $2,500 per year, which is more than they spend on the price on pollution, which is something the other side doesn't understand because, Mr. Speaker, they don't care if the planet burns. And, Mr. Speaker, let's go one step further. Why did that side vote against the Canada Child Benefit that gives $7,800 per kid in Alberta? Why did they vote against childcare? Why did they vote against support for workers? They care about themselves, not about Canadians. We're on the side of Canadians each and every day.
The Honourable Member from Regina Leuven.
That much hot air to run a couple windmills, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of these NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs up, crime is up, and time is up. The Parliamentary Budget Officer once again confirmed that Canadians pay much more and cost more than they get back in rebates. In Saskatchewan, after these guys quadruple the carbon tax, it's going to cost a family $2,000. That's $2,000 a year, Mr. Speaker. My question is, when will these Liberals call carbon tax elections so Canadians can have their say at the ballot box?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, it's really difficult to take any of this rhetoric seriously. When I was first elected 9 years ago, that party used to send checks to millionaires to help them with the cost of raising their families. That presented 2 questions. Millionaires would ask me in my riding, why am I getting this money? And people of lower income would ask me in my riding, why is it getting taxed back? What we did is we created a Canada Child Benefit that is tax-free and means tested. What we've also done is establish a national school food program. If you're really serious about addressing child poverty and family poverty, why don't you get on board?